At the outset, I'd like to thank Mr. Gautam Mitro, Shantanu, Chandanda for allowing me to be here. And thanks once again for the kind words. Well, we are towards the end of the entire session, and obviously it's appearing the audience has thinned out. Well, and since we are constrained on time, I'll try to highlight only certain important issues. And before I go ahead, if I'd like to ask the audience, how many of you have a CP child in your immediate family? If it seems personal, you may not answer. May I have a show of hands? So 1, 2, 3. So 4. So 4 out of, I think, around 50 or 70 odd people still here. So 1 out of 10 or even less. And these people who happen to deal with these children day in and day out really know real first-hand experience that how difficult it is to handle these children. So I'll try to highlight only those important points which really are important in our day-to-day working. What are the issues involved? We all know, we've had the definition, we've had the incidents, we had the causes from our previous speakers. We don't need to go into all that. The importance is the motor and the movement issues. And apart from that, there are a lot of comorbid associations which happen, like sensory issues, visual problems, hearing, convulsions, and developmental delay, which is all there in front of you. Now, are these important? Are these comorbid conditions important? Well, yes, because they are contributing to the suffering or the problem the child is facing. They are adding, they are not reducing the problem, they are further aggravating it. And I'll just start off with, and how do we go about it? Prevention, yes, it has been dealt with our gynecologist, Dr. Day, initially, and we know it for well that more than half the time it's not preventable. Agreed, sir? What we can do, we can try to detect it as early as possible, and at the same time, to do some intervention as early as possible, because the earlier the intervention occurs, the better will be the outcomes. You are liable to get up an absolutely normal, healthy child by the age of 20 if you have been able to intervene fast. And to intervene, obviously, you have got to recognize the problem. And at the last, this is very important. These children must be made to feel independent. They are not dependent on you and me. And this is something which may go into their brain. And this is very important for the parents to also realize. We should not sort of put a caricature or sort of a shell around them that, no, don't do this, eta jabina, ota kurbina, and don't move around and you'll get hurt. Well, yes, there will be limitations, but still, they should be made to stay as practical as possible within those limitations. This is a small child, and I'll just highlight it because this is very important in our working and very important for neonatologists. We had a very small preemie baby, 900, less than 1,000 grams, developed respiratory distress syndrome, was on oxygen, ventilated, and all sorts of complications. The child stayed for a month and then gained weight and was discharged. At 4 months, the parents noticed a whitish spot in the right eye. What was that? Can anybody say? What was that? The child had developed retinopathy of prematurity, and to the extent that the retina had almost detached fully, and the child's right eye was blind. Fortunately, the other eye was not that bad and could be treated, and so the child was not fully blind for life. Otherwise, the outcome would have been a fully blind child, otherwise normal. So that is something which was preventable. And this should have been done because an ROP screen, had it been done at the time of hospital stay, and lo and behold, I don't know whether of you know, ROP, kernicterus, and asphyxia are the 3 important issues which are medico-legally important globally for newborns. And there is where our neonatologists get stuck. If you don't do an ROP screening and your child gets blind, you're liable to be sued for negligence. If you allow the child to develop kernicterus because of a bad jaundice, and the child develops athetosis and developmental delay, you're liable to be sued, and obviously all of us know about cerebral palsy. The silver lining in cerebral palsy was and is that now we know that overall asphyxia or parental hypoxia is not responsible for the majorities of CPs. So these are the movement issues. See this child. This child walks broad gait and has an unsteady gait because the child has got ataxic, and walks bent forward with the feet wide apart. So the child is trying to stabilize himself. Something like this. It takes irregular steps. See these children. This child is, the right side is not working to the full extent. So the arm remains bent, the hand is spastic or maybe floppy, and is of little use, whereas this side is almost normal. And the child drags its feet when walking. Well, this child has got both lower limbs involved and has to walk on crutches. But this one has got all four lower limbs involved, and probably this child will not be able to. In the picture shows the child standing, probably the child is not able to stand or walk fully. We have some warning signs which we can, if we can pick up early on. What are they? Poor head control, stiff or rigid arms and legs, Mr. Chairman, sir, I'm taking a moment off just to let the audience settle down. So, we have these important warning signs. The child doesn't get head control, like what we saw, the head tends to fall back or fall forward if not supported. And that normally is achieved by 6 to 8 weeks. If this delayed beyond 3 months, there's stiffness or rigid arms. So whenever the child is laid down, the child tends to arch backwards. And the child may have a floppy or limp posture. If you hold the child, a small child, maybe 3 months old, on your palm, the heads would fall down, the legs would fall down. The head wouldn't stand up straight. And child cannot even sit up with support at 8 months. And if the child is found to be using one side of the body, one half of the body, the mother comes and tells you that my child uses the left arm, the right arm doesn't seem to be mobile much. Put your fingers on, a thinking cap on, that yes, there must be some problem, try to detect it as early as possible. Behavioral, extreme irritability, failure to smile, and feeding difficulties, persistent gagging, choking, lot of drooling coming out, continuous drooling, which is another manifestation, or at 6 months the tongue pushes the soft food out of the mouth. These are warning signs which tell us to recognize, which tell us that yes, there is a problem, and we jolly well try to look for it. What are the managements we can do so that the outcomes are better? Physical therapy, or as is very commonly called physiotherapy, well, physical medicine. The goal is to achieve good skeletal alignment for the spastic child. For the child with athetosis, we need to train them in purposeful acts, like even if they want to have a glass of water, the child is otherwise fine. Because of the athetosis, the child tends to have various sorts of peculiar movements, and sometimes these children tend to get beaten up or slapped by their peers or even parents or relatives. Hey, what are you doing? These things do happen. But that child is actually not doing it. It's just happening. And if you ask the child to hold a cup of water, suppose a 5-year-old child can't, as soon as it falls off, because he has athetosis movements at that point of time. So we've got to train them so that they can do purposeful act, even in the face of involuntary movements, which tends to present as a handicap to the child having that purposeful movement. And maximum development of proprioceptive senses, which are coming from the periphery and the movements are occurring. And then you can use orthotic devices for like braces or splints. Well, this is important. I got this banner somewhere. Help us develop our skills rather than treating our ills. So the child says, I'm otherwise fine, I've got a bit of a problem. Help me to overcome that problem. Okay? Like this, see this. Instead of always trying to feed the child, make the child sit. Help the child feed on his own. Make the child, it's not impossible for the child to hold the spoon and feed on her own. So if you do that, well, just like giving a person a roti, fine, you do some charity. But you teach a person to earn a roti, you're doing much better than what you would have been doing by just giving a roti. So it's something like that. The child becomes self-dependent rather than relying on you all the time. Speech therapy is something which must be started off early, and unfortunate part is quite often what happens, parents tend to lose patience. Speech therapy is something which is time consuming, expensive at times, has a session 1 to 2 hours or 1 hour at least, every alternate day, thrice a week, and the person comes, and it is not immediately rewarding. You don't get results within 10 days or 1 week or 15 days. You get results in 6 months, 3 months, but you will get the results. So quite often what happens, parents stop doing it. So this is one thing we need to realize, that it has to be done. Well, we got to find out ways how to make it a bit less expensive, more affordable and all that. That's different. But it should be done, must be done, and the parents must follow the instructions of the therapist. Because if the therapist says that do this while I'm away, while you are there with the child 23 hours out of the 24 hours or 24, I am coming for only 1 hour. So rest of the 23 hours or rest of the 10 hours, you try to do the rest of the training. What you learn from me, what I'm doing. So they need to do what is required from what the speech therapist has said. Special education. It is determined every child may not require. Specifically, certain situations are there where we will require special education, and we have centers in Kolkata also where this is being imparted. And we need to have early individual programs, early intervention programs, and individual programs means sort of customized programs for an individual child. You make out the program specifically what this child needs, assessing what the child will need, and then the special educator does this in various places. We have special learning programs and support services in schools. Those schools do have, and some good schools are trying to build this up on their own, in their own centers also. And we need to promote self-concept development. It needs very important to realize this. The child should learn to develop self-esteem and not self-pity. Why did this happen to me? And this is for the parents to realize. They should not poke in the child. Why it happened to my child only? It could have happened to anybody. Well, this is just, I'll just skip this slide very fast because this is a domain totally different. Surgical intervention is reserved for only those patients who don't respond to conservative therapy or whose spasticity is really creating a problem. Like, child's leg is standing like this all the time, and child walks like this. For those, you got to do a tendon release. The orthopedic surgeons do it very well, and the difficulty is removed, or rather minimized. They do all this, correct contractures, provide stability for an uncontrolled joint, and balance muscle power. Surgery like what I just talked about, tendon lengthening procedures, even wrist, the hands remains like this. So they do a surgery where they release here, and then instead of all the time, because the contracture is developed, the hand now straightens off. If the hand remains like this all the time, there will be no purposeful act the child can't use the hand much. So that has to be released. These are surgical issues, and it is rather for improved function, not for cosmetic purpose. And this is followed by physical therapy, physical medicine. Medications, again, are of little use, except for specific situations like anti-anxiety medications. You have methocarbamol, and you have dantrolene, baclofen. These are usually used in the short term. Diazepam is a good muscle relaxant. If you have too much of spasticity, you may use it. But again, it has got its own. If any drug used for a long time is bound to produce some side effects. Local nerve blocks, 2 motor points of muscle with a neurolytic agent like phenol may relieve spasticity. This is very much in fashion nowadays. A lot of surgeons tend to use botulinum toxin to paralyze certain muscles. The muscles which are spastic, they paralyze them so that that muscle doesn't grip and allow the other counteracting muscles to work, so that the child's movements are improved. Well, for secondary conditions, there are very highly specialized surgeries done by very specialist centers. Now, these are, as I was talking about, the various comorbid situations. MR, convulsions, hearing and speech defects, eye defects, and behavioral problems. You can see the incidence is almost quite high at times, but every child doesn't have everything. One child may have a speech problem, another child may have a hearing issue, another child may have convulsions, which is to the tune of say 30-40%, but everything is controllable. We need to allow these children to have a normal life quality. The quality of life has to be improved. And this is, look at the team which is required. So centers which can provide all this, neurologists, physiotherapists, speech therapists, occupational therapists, psychologists, teachers who are really interested in doing it, not like coming at 10, going at 3, doing in front of the class, whether the class listens or not, going away home. If that is your aim, sorry, you take your salary, go home, but you won't be helping. Eye doctors, ears, ENT surgeon, orthopedic surgeon, and this is something, a very important issue. Unfortunately, we are badly lacking in this. And these are certain household devices. Unfortunately, we have very few of them in our country, which are provided to these children. Like arm orthosis, it's utilized to hold equipment. It has a long handle. Just because the child can't extend the hand, it has a long handle. So the child will be able to hold it from a distance. Overhead slings, devices for feeding, like you have adapted utensils, adapted cup holders and cups and spoons, adapted brushes, okay, limb adapted toothbrushes. And these have to be made at times in a customized fashion. Devices for dressing, button aids, zipper pulls. You have for bathing, long handled sponges. For cooking, suction scrub brush, adapted cooking utensils, and for cleaning as well. This is very important. And this is where, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, we are not up to the mark. I mean, sometimes I have had the experience of seeing, unfortunately, parents abandoning the child. I mean, this may look very, very, very weird, but it happens. So this is something we need to improve upon. We can have community support, NGOs like Mr. Mitra is doing a wonderful job. Parent support groups, like groups, there are groups in this city also. I had a patient, the mother was a pathologist, and she was having her own lab in this city. She shifted centers, she went over to the suburbs, and she has now set up, in Bengal itself, in Bankura, she has set up a center where she's trying to have all the parents, and they have a nice center over there, where they tend to, there's not cerebral palsy basically, it's autism, and they are doing a good job over there, with a lot of autistic children. And you can imagine she stopped her or closed down her own lab. So, the family's role is so important. The school's role, you should not segregate them from the family or the peer groups, but to allow them to be part of the regular class as far as practicable, with a little bit of support, and also to provide an insight and train the parents about the special needs. What is important? Social awareness. About 1/3 of them have an average IQ. They're not retarded all the time. So we got to realize in society, and as Dr. Chandanda was saying, doctors need to be more aware probably first, rather than the society. If we are not aware, how can we make the society aware? And what the authorities can do, provide them with equal opportunities, normal and special education, employment opportunities, and very, very important, not allow them to be discriminated against. So we need to realize that these children are not handicapped, they are not retarded, they are not disabled, but they are a bit differently abled. They are all God's children. So they should not go with the label, oh, you are disabled, you can't do much. Next, need to provide an environment in the family, school, society where they feel secure and wanted. They should never be a cause for ridicule, which happens quite often, or bullying, and need to be treated as par like any other citizen, and would only provide assistance where and when needed. Thank you, friends, for giving me this time. Thanks a lot.
Hello. Thank you, Arun, for your excellent, lucid deliberation. May I just raise one question?
Sir, of course, sir.
Under the heading of behavioral science, you have mentioned that failure to smile by 3 months. I think you did mean social smile, not just
Yeah,
smile.
yeah, smile, social smile. Yeah, you're right.
I have raised this question because the difference between the smile and social
Agreed.
smile may not be clear to everybody.
Social smile means when the person interacts with the mother, looks at the mother, because that is the person whom the child is interacting with all the time. Okay, in most families. So when the child sees the mother and smiles at the mother, then that is what is social smile. Not just smiling in his sleep. Quite often child will sleep in his sleep also.
জাস্ট এ মিনিট, বাংলায় যেটাকে বলে দেয়ালা করা, এমনি হাসছে, সেটা কিন্তু স্মাইল নয়। দিস ইজ ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট। তার দিকে চেয়ে কিছু বললে বা হাসলে রেসপন্সে হাসছে, দ্যাট ইজ সোশ্যাল স্মাইল। থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ।
Thank you, Dr. Mangulik. It was a very interesting session, no doubt, and the last discussion and the presentation from Dr. Mangulik was so down to earth, so elusive. So, I mean, it looks like something day to day we are having such problems. We see them and we try to get rid of them as much as we can. That is the mission of Bishwabandhan, no doubt. I again repeat, thank you, Dr. Mangulik, once again.
Thanks a lot for inviting me.
We all enjoyed your deliberation.